One of the biggest challenges I faced when I started trading is that I could not differentiate between high probability setup and low probability setup. Now the truth is, many traders today still face the same challenges, especially beginners. They hear people talking about take only high probability trade setup, the A+ setup, but they don't even know how to differentiate between a high probability trade setup and a low probability trade setups. In reality, most people end up taking a very poor setup thinking it's a high probability setup. Just because someone told you this is a high probability setup does not make it so. There are steps you need to take to identify and to validate that a trade setup is of high probability trade setup. And in this video, we're about to share the key steps on how to identify a higher probability trade setup or an A+ setup. I will show you the exact method I use over the years to identify my A+ setup, the really high probability trades that are based on logic, backtesting, structure, and experience. It's not based on guesswork. So by the end of this video, both beginner and every other trader will be able to filter between one setup to another with confidence and stop gambling with your money, taking low probability trade setups. So let's dive in. Hello guys, welcome to Rookies FS. I'm a professional forex trader and I've been trading for over 8 years now. And in this video, I want to share with you the experience I had while searching for high probability trade setups. So let's dive in. The number one step to identify a high probability trade setups is through checklist. The use of checklists can help you to identify a setup that is of high probability trade setup and a setup that is of low probability trade setups. How do we mean? You need to have a checklist like this. So in your checklist, you're going to have all your items you want to see in a trade. Number 1, this is what you want to see. Number 2, this is what you want to see. Number 3, this is what you want to see. Or to maybe 10, or depends on the strategy, the system you are using. For instance, I can say that the trend, the number 1 thing is that I want to see my setup following the trend. But 2, I want to see this. I don't want to see the other thing. I want to see stop hunts. I want to see a retest of break of structure. All these things need to be stated in our checklist. The second part of the equation is anytime a setup presents itself, you may not need to physically tick the checklist, but you can tick it by checking the checklist. If you don't have it offhand, it's preferable to always have it printed out. So you check it and check if that trade setup you're about to take align with your plan, align with your checklist. So you need to create a checklist of the criteria that define a quality trade setup. For example, you can ask yourself, is this trade in line with my higher time frame trend? Do I have confirmation candles? So if, for instance, your checklist is 10 items and out of 10 items, 8 or 9 were ticks, that made that setup a high probability setup. And that is your A+ setup. So what we're trying to do is that this approach helps you to avoid impulsive and emotional trades. It brings structure to your decision making. So if you don't know how to identify a high probability setup, one of the ways to make it easy to identify your high probability setup is by using a checklist. So if the item in your checklist, for instance, is 10 items, and when you're about to take a trade, you notice 9 or 7 out of the 10 items align with your strategy, that trade becomes a high probability trade setup. But when, for instance, out of 10 items, what align with your strategies or the trade setup, what align with the strategy is just 4 items, such trade is a low probability trade setup and you must avoid it. Maybe your checklist is the market structure clearly is the market structure clear? Are we bullish or bearish? So you could ask yourself that, could be part of your item. Is there a stop hunt? Is there a break of structure before this entry? Is there any kind of imbalance the market need to fill? Is there an order block or a supply demand zone? Is there a lower time frame change of character or break of structure that I need to pay attention to? So does this setup has all to 1 to 3 hour risk to reward? Is there no contradiction on the higher time frame with this setup? So I'm just giving you these instances. Your main focus is that there must be alignment between the setup you're about to take and your criteria for defining a good trade setup. What we are doing is to help us stay disciplined so we don't lose our money through impulsive trade. The second way to identify a high probability trade setup is through backtesting. You need to backtest your system. Without backtesting, you're not going to have confidence. Backtesting is like rehearsal. Every athlete rehearse and practice their crafts to become better. If you don't backtest, you may not be able to get the best out of your trading. You need to backtest. So when I'm backtesting, for instance, what I often do is this. I will pick a notebook or a journal. I will say this is win, this is loss. Now what I will do is I will pick a particular setup. And one thing I will advise you to do, give your trading setup a name, codify it, make it look like a personal setup, even if it's an idea borrowed from another trader. Give it a name. So I will say setup A or setup B, the win, the loss. What the next thing I will do is I will be looking for that specific setup. Any win, I will record the win. I may just mark it like this. If it's a win, we'll mark it. If it's a loss, we're still going to mark it also. So by the end of a specific period, I want to backtest up to, let's say, 2 months, 3 months, 1 year data, please. The more the data you gather, the better for you, the better the confidence level. So let's say I had to backtest for 3 years of historical data from the charts, and I discovered that I was having more win on a particular setup. This backtesting make my trading that particular setup a high probability setup. Because what backtesting does is that backtesting gives you a statistical proof that a setup work over time. So the backtesting is going to help you to identify your win rates. Let's take, for instance, after my backtesting, I discovered that my win rate is auto 61%. That setup become a high probability trade setups. I know for the newbies, they will say, 61% is too low. The reality is 35% can make you a good amount of money in the forex market. I know this is not what you want to hear. You want to hear 90%. But we're talking about the true nature of trading. That with 35 up to 60%, you can make consistent profits in the markets. So you have to record your win rates, your risk to reward, and also the drop downs. All these are very important. But the focus right here to identify it, please record when it wins and when it give you losses. Record both sides so that you know whether you're going to continue to take that setup or not. So this is one way of identifying a setup that is of high probability. The third way of identifying a setup with high probability is through confluence. Anytime a specific element in your trading has multiple confirmations, it gives you confidence. So you are seeing multiple elements align at the same time. Take for instance, you are the type that trades Fibonacci pullback, and let's put it this way. Let's say we had to take a trade right here. Okay, let's say the Fibonacci, I'm looking at Fibonacci level here, and it's aligned with my 50% win rate, 50% level. Let me drag it to this side. You can see this, right? Let's say here align with it, and at the same time I'm using RSI. RSI is at oversold. We are getting how many confirmation already too. Not just that, maybe your moving average also confirm it for you. Not just that, maybe you get confirmation from your price action or supply or demand, whatever system you are using. Please don't let anyone discourage you that the only thing that works is one particular way. That is not true. You can use an indicator and still make much better than someone who feel you understand the market. you truly did not know much about the market, because at every given time you don't have a complete information about the market. So look at it this way, that this market is to go up, but it gave you a confluence. Okay, so what do we do next? At this point, you're getting confirmation, the stop point is there, everything you need is there. This made that trade a high probability trade setup. Not the specific trade, but any trade that have multiple confluence. The confluence add weight to your analysis. A trade that lines up with multiple confirmation is strong. Okay, so there's stop point, there's confirmation. A stop point can be someone else's confirmation. Like this movement here is a confirmation for someone to enter the market that the market makers are in. Okay, so anything that can give you that is what? Confluence. Now, another way of knowing if a trade is a high probability trade setup is through your trade journal. If you've traded for over a long period of time, you always post at every given time, you always record your trade performance. After a long period of time, you'll be able to discover that a particular or a specific way a market moves gives you a better result. So anytime you track and you're analyzing your own trades, it helps you to identify a setup that is consistently working for you. If at any time you record your trades, you mark a particular setup and say this setup always works, you'll be able to identify a setup that is of high probability trade setup. So your best setup are not just about theory, they're about what works in your hand with your own psychology. So the final thought is that an A+ setup is not about perfection. You must understand this. An A+ setup is not about perfection. It's about familiarity and consistency. The more elements that agree, the more confident you can be. You don't want to use all method at every trade, but you could pick one or combine both together to find your trade setups that is of high probability setups. So if you find this video useful or valuable, please consider to subscribe to our channel. We're going to share so many strategies with you that will help you become more consistent in making profits. Subscribe to our channel as we're willing to give out value that will help you become better.